Okay, it's 2 o'clock Central. It's time to start. I'm going to start slowly just because I know from experience that people will be coming in time and again here, showing up a little bit late. So we'll continue to add them in there. And I don't want to give any super important information right at the start so that they don't miss it. So, first thing I just want to say is thanks for everybody for coming. I'm sure most of you know who I am, but I'll introduce myself real quick. My name is Jan Miller, and I'm a student loan consultant, a repayment expert. And my job is to help people navigate student loan repayment in conjunction with their financial objectives for the best possible outcome, depending on their specific financial and personal situation. And I've been doing this for one way or the other 27 years, 28 years as of this October. Most of you, again, who I invited have probably talked to me before. Um, Again, I wore my purple headphones for everybody, and I thought about maybe doing a meditation at the beginning. I'm only kidding, but a lot of stress around student loans. So if we want to do an Om beforehand, I can unmute everybody and we can all do a group Om. We'll save that for the end, maybe. Go into a deep state of relaxation before you enter this webinar. Thanks for everybody's patience. Again, I am going to wait for a few people to come in. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started, and then I might be a little bit repetitive. The first thing I want to go over, right from the beginning is probably the most recent development in student loans right now, and that is the SAVE program. And if you're in the SAVE injunction, notification that the SAVE injunction or forbearance is eventually going to be ending. And they're strongly coercing you to try to change your plan. We're going to talk about whether you should do that. And of course, interest starting on August 1st, which was inevitable at some point. So as of August 1st, everybody's accruing interest, no matter what plan you're in, even in the SAVE injunction. And that's kind of a first for people who, especially in SAVE, haven't had to pay any interest since March of 2020 due to the pandemic. And then subsequently, payments started back for a minute, but if you were in SAVE, any excess interest was waived. And then when the SAVE injunction hit, they stopped interest after that. Now, some of you, went into repayment into other plans, and those, of course, accrue interest as normal. But even though interest is starting, you're still not required to enter into a different plan as of yet. And there may be reasons, as we'll discuss, why you would want to do that. So I definitely want to answer and get to questions because I know people will have a lot of questions. But I do want to go over kind of the basics of what happened in the bill and what to happen with SAVE and what is going to happen with SAVE and so forth. So if you're in the SAVE program, even if your current forbearance, and you'll see a lot of forbearances ending October of this year, that doesn't mean that the SAVE injunction ends in October. That means that the current 3-month forbearance ends, and if the injunction is still in place, they'll keep pushing it forward another 3 months, as they've been doing since July of last year. So if you are in the SAVE program, eventually you're going to have to switch. Obviously, if you're in public service loan forgiveness, there can be a strong desire to do that to make sure that you start accruing qualified payments. I will tell you they're processing the switch requests very quickly right now. So I'm seeing them take a month or so, especially new requests. So if you've already submitted requests, and I know a lot of borrowers have over the last year that have just not been worked at all and gone into the ethers without it being worked, they're probably not going to get worked. And it's probably a good idea to recertify again or do the plan switch again if you want to start repayment, if you're ready to get out of the SAVE and you want to switch, and your request to switch plans hasn't been processed yet, my advice is to process it again at studentaid.gov. Because for those who do, it's getting done in like a month or two, maybe sometimes quicker, despite of the backlog that you might hear of. So what I'm seeing from my point of view, and especially after the bill was passed, they've really ramped up the processing of the income-driven plans. So if you've been sitting there for months and trying to switch and haven't been able to, do another application, you'll probably find that it goes through. With the SAVE program, again, you can stay in there for as long as you want. So the question that I often get is, how long is the SAVE program going to last? Right. So with the SAVE program, with the SAVE injunction, excuse me, how long is that going to last? The SAVE forbearance, and the best answer I can give you is between 3 months and 3 years. So they're not even going to start to actually phase out the SAVE program per the bill, the new big beautiful bill, until 2026, July of 2026. However, and it could be phased out as late as July of 2028, according to the bill. It's very unlikely it'll take that long. Additionally, if the courts decide that that the whole plan, the whole ICR statute is unconstitutional, then they're going to force everybody to switch out of any plan that's not the income-based repayment plan pretty quickly. So that could happen. I doubt it'll be as soon as 3 months, but it could happen by the end of this year. Probably it'll take a little bit longer for that, but it could certainly happen before the federal student aid decides to kick you out of the SAVE plan after July of 26. So the best answer I can give you is that nobody has any idea how long that's going to take. But if you want to stay in it, you can certainly stay in it and ride out the SAVE forbearance for as long as you want until they require you to switch, at which point then you're going to want to switch. Because if you don't do it proactively, they may choose your plan for you eventually. So at some point, you're going to want to switch. But right now, you don't have to. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about the big, beautiful plan, what's changed, what's the same, and the basics of what you need to know. And this is going to be on YouTube eventually, so this is a lot of information. So processing it, I admit, is going to be very difficult, but it'll be here for you, and you can review it on YouTube when I post it there. And of course, you can ask questions too after I'm done with my initial presentation, which basically I'm just going to tell you what's what with the bill and what you need to know. All right. So first of all, for the most part, grandfathering still upheld against the big beautiful bill, and most of what has been grandfathered in and Congress approved remained that way, including public service loan forgiveness, the new and old IBR plans, which were Congress approved. Of course, SAVE, Pay As You Earn, and ICR will eventually go away. But those programs, especially SAVE and Pay As You Earn, were part of an executive action, so they were more fragile and more susceptible to being canceled. So I think we expected that to happen really in the last year. That was the anticipation. PSLF is still intact, the same way it was. And you can still, and it's actually getting processed. I am having clients forgiven as recent as last week, and employment certifications are processing as fast as ever. It's just the income-driven plans, that especially for people who are stuck in SAVE until now, that's been the problem. But now that they're processing the switch requests, it's very real. You can get out of SAVE and get into a plan that creates real qualifying payments. So far, the buyback program for PSLF still exists. And you can still apply for buyback and still qualify for it. However, they're not processing it. They haven't done so since January. But at some point, even Linda McMahon, the Secretary of Education, stated to Senator Warren that they were going to start processing those eventually. So we'll see if that happens. And that's the same thing also with income-driven or income-based repayment forgiveness. So if you're in SAVE or Pay As You Earn, then it's going to be more difficult to actually get forgiveness executed. So you might even be at 300 or 240 qualified payments and meet the total. But until you're in IBR, they're not processing the forgivenesses right now. So you can switch to IBR just so that you can get in the queue for forgiveness if you want. That might help doing that. Well, and then of course, with the married filing separately, that's still available. So you can file your taxes separately and exclude your spouse's income in all of the plans, including the new Republican plan, which is the RAP plan, which doesn't go into effect until July of next year. And residents for physicians still qualify for PSLF. Forbearance and deferment are the same for existing borrowers. So if you already have loans and you're already in debt, All the forbearance and deferment rules are still intact. Borrowers doing the senior strategy, you know who you guys are, my older folks who are in the senior strategy. Everything is still a go for there. We can still execute that with a few minor changes that we may have to make along the way, but ultimately it's still the same process exists there. For those of you who aren't in the senior strategy, you might not be aware of it, but that program you don't have to worry about if you haven't heard that term. Maybe you'll have to worry about it someday, but not right now. Once you get a little bit older. Okay, and before I go any further, because we're talking a lot about how this bill affected affected income-driven plans and forgiveness plans specifically. So the IDR plans, the new RAP plan, Pay As You Earn Save. So I want to just go over again, and I'm sure I've done this for you all before, but it's very confusing. So just to explain the terminology when you hear these different acronyms and whatnot. Whenever you hear the term income-driven repayment plan, that refers to all now 7 income-driven plans, which include the income contingent repayment, or ICR, the new and old version of income-based repayment, IBR, Pay As You Earn, revised Pay As You Earn, which turned into Save, and now the new RAP program, which starts in July of next year that the Republicans introduced. So those are all income-driven plans. So often you'll see a notice from the U.S. Department of Education or your loan servicer that'll say, hey, your IDR plan is approved. And you'll be like, wait a minute, I thought I was in Pay As You Earn. You are. Pay As You Earn is one of the IDR plans, as are all those other iterations, RAP, Save, Repay, income-based, income contingent repayment. Those are IDR plans. So understanding that will help everything make a little bit more sense for you if you don't already. And the income-driven repayment plans, income contingent, Save, Pay As You Earn. Again, we don't know exactly when those end, but they are going to end anytime in the next 3 years. Could be any day now. And with this administration, it's hard to guess when anything will happen. There's a lot of surprises. So a lot of people have been wondering whether they should stay and save or not. And should they stay and ride it out, or should they, switch right away? And the answer for everybody is different. There are a lot of reasons to stay and save. So number one, can you afford the larger payment? Are you ready for it? Because you may have not had to recertify for the last 5 years. So you want to make sure that you can afford that payment before you go into, because you'll have to use more recent proof of income to switch to it. Are you pursuing PSLF? A lot of people have the attitude where they'll pay whatever it takes. Just they want to get into the plan so they can get forgiven, so they can either change careers or just not have to worry about their student loans. So most clients, most of my borrowers in PSLF really have been wanting and itching to change for a long time, despite the higher payments, if they can afford it. Obviously, if you can't, then then you have to do what you got to do and maybe stay in it for a while until you can, or at least give you time to prepare for the payments increasing, which will happen for most people. Another reason to stay and save would be the potential that, or for example, here's a great example. Let's say you filed jointly last year. So normally back in the day, or normally filing separately would have been the right thing for you to do so that you can exclude your spouse's income, right? However, because you haven't had to recertify in so long, you've been filing jointly to save money with the IRS. And then you went ahead and did it in 24, filed jointly, and now payments are coming due. Well, you may want to wait and stretch it out until next year so you can file separately on your taxes next tax season and then switch into the plan. I think that's going to be very likely possible that you can do that. And that way you can exclude your spouse's income if that's the best option for you. So that's a great example of a reason to stay in the Save forbearance. Yes, interest is accruing, but that's going to be happening anyways. And if you're in a forgiveness program, that interest is just going to add on to the back, on top of the amount that's forgiven. It's not going to change your cumulative payment costs along the way. And for PSLF, of course, it's tax-free, so you don't have to worry about it. So don't worry about the interest too much if you're in an income-driven or a forgiveness plan. Again, if you're in an income-driven plan, it does raise your balance. It could theoretically create a greater tax consequence at the end. So you do have to consider that as an idea as well. For the income-driven plan changes that are some things you got to keep an eye on. If you're in old or newer IBR, your path forward is pretty straightforward. Stay in it. Stay where you're at. If you're in pay-as-you-earn, that again may stick around for 3 months or 3 years. It'll be a lower payment for you than anything else if your original loans were taken out before July 1st, 2020, for 2014. If your loans are newer, in other words, your first loans were taken out after July 1st of 2014, then the new IBR plan is the same payment as pay-as-you-earn based on the same income. But for older borrowers who have older debt, you can expect your payment to go up if you're in pay-as-you-earn. You can still apply for pay-as-you-earn, and you can switch from save to pay-as-you-earn now if you want to. Just know that that program won't stay around forever. But if you're in PSLF especially, or really any of the forgiveness programs, you might as well switch to pay-as-you-earn if you qualify for it. And to qualify, that means you have to have new loans after October 1st, 2007. Can't have anything older than that. And you have to have new loans taken out after July 1st of 2011. So it's, if you have really, really old stuff, you might not even qualify for pay. But if you could get in it, you might get it for a couple of years, or at least a year before you have to switch, and it might be a lower payment for you. So that's something to consider. The one thing also too I want to mention about this bill is that it doesn't touch, and this is what we were expecting to happen, is that your any forgiveness benefits you already received, any qualified payments you've received as a part of the IDR one-time account adjustment, any subsidy you've received is likely going to remain. You're not going to be retroactively charged for that. So you're going to keep what you've already received in benefits to this point. And that includes your qualified payments. So even though the IDR tracker disappeared and PSLF is still available, you'll eventually be able to see your qualified payment total again. The RAP program, the new program, doesn't come around until next year, around July of 26. So that's not even going to be an option to switch to that. So right now, you're going to want to switch to pay-as-you-earn, if anything, which will be a lower payment than what RAP would be for about anybody. One thing I want to mention about people in some sort of standard plan, it's going to be probably a very small majority for you. But for borrowers who are in a standard repayment, paying back the loan in a general way, that is going to be could be shocking at this point, because you could go back and do they're going to re-amortize those schedules as if you've been in repayment. So in other words, if you have a 10-year loan term and you were in forbearance for 5 years for whatever reason, your standard payment is going to be something in the neighborhood of almost twice what it was. In other words, they're going to make you pay the loan off in 5 years, as if to make up for those 5 years in forbearance, basically, which is just incredibly strict. Yeah, so again, if you're in an income-driven plan or public service loan forgiveness or what have you, you don't have to worry about re-amortization. You might see it though and be surprised. And when you get that notice that says, hey, your plan has been approved for 12 months. If you don't recertify, your payment goes up to XYZ. That amount might be gigantic, because it might be re-amortized based on a schedule that'll make you pay it off 10 years from prior to the pandemic instead of after. So it could raise your payment pretty significantly. There are options for those people if that happens. And again, it would be a good idea. That would be a good idea to schedule a call. Consolidation is one trick. If you do a full federal direct consolidation, if you haven't consolidated yet, that'll re-amortize your loan back into a 25-year term and lower your payment. That's a quick and easy. You could also call your loan servicer and change from the 10-year standard to the extended standard. And depending on your loan balance, that will that'll lower your payment and push out your amortization schedule a little bit longer and make it a longer term. So those are some brief ways to adjust your payment if it gets too high as a result of that. But there's probably not too many of you guys that are doing that. So I just wanted to make you aware of it in case you see it. The extended and graduate plans and all those plans still exist for existing borrower. And eventually you'll be prompted to change. And when you want to make sure that you do change at that time. When push comes to shove, and you're going to have to change, you want to do it manually so that they don't choose they don't choose the plan for you. I want to talk about RAP just a little bit. I'm going to go over it because that's a year away, but just a little bit of the differences. It's not, that program isn't the worst program in the world, especially compared to the fact that all the good plans are being taken away. There's one thing you might hear, and I would say, if you wrap, then you can't go back. In other words, if you go into the wrap program, then you can't go back to IBR. There's some disagreement on that. Some have interpreted the new bill to state, well, you can go back, you just don't get your qualified payment total. Your payments don't go with it if you go back to IBR. And then there's an interpretation that says that you can't go back at all. So either way, why would you want to? If you do go to wrap, you're probably going to stay there and be stuck in it. And there's going to be very little reason. There is a loophole there that affects a very small subset of borrowers where that could benefit them. Basically, again, the desire to make the loan completely outlive you with the low income and prevent taxable forgiveness. You could switch to wrap and back to IBR if they let you do that. And that would essentially start you over. And you'd have to do another 30 years from whenever you did that, or 25 years in IBR. And then you would get forgiven. And you might be 130 when that happens. So, but that would only work for people with extremely low incomes. But that's something that hopefully nobody has to think about. The WRAP program does have a small subsidy, but it's not as good in most cases. I mean, it does waive unpaid interest in a lot of ways. It prevents the balance from growing. And they do even give it a little small credit towards principal of $50, up to $50 if your payment doesn't cover all of your interest in some circumstances, but relatively limited. There's a couple things about it that's important to understand about the RAP program, and that is that it doesn't, it allows you to exclude the spouse's income by filing separately. The WRAP does that as well, but it doesn't count family size the same way. So if you ever talked to me before, you probably heard me tell you, listen, how many people in your household, and not just dependents, you can count unborn children. You can count anybody who lives with you you account for greater than 50% of the cost of living. So even if your best friend's in the basement not paying rent, or if your grandma's in the attic or parents move in with you, you can count those people legitimately as a dependent according to the rules of the income-driven plans, the IBR program and whatnot that are in place right now. With WRAP, you can't do that. You can only count the people that you claimed on your tax return. So that could dramatically change your family size and your family credit, and making WRAP that much more expensive. So be aware of that. And there's no $0 payments with WRAP. So you're going to have, no matter how, even if you're unemployed, you're still going to be required to pay $10 a month in that program. Just kind of give an idea, WRAP is going to be a higher payment than pay-as-you-earn and new IBR. For borrowers with older IBR, WRAP will be lower, especially for borrowers who have small family sizes. But because of the family credits that you get with IBR, even old IBR, if your family size gets especially above 4 or 5, will start to outperform it in a lot of circumstances. So depending on exactly how much money you make. But the WRAP program is also 30 years long. So if you're not doing PSLF, there's very few circumstances in where you want to switch. I did talk to somebody the other day where the math checked out that it lowered his payment, but increased his term another 5 years, but it still saved him a little bit of money in the long run because of the subsidy if you factored in interest or the tax costs of the forgiveness, worst case scenario. So theoretically, you could save money with WRAP if you're not doing PSLF. But not in many circumstances. And then the other thing about WRAP, and this is super important. So if you are a borrower who's married and both of you have student loan debt, both you and your spouse have student loan debt, and you're filing jointly so that you can prorate not only the income, but also the payment based on the amount of debt each other has, they're not doing that with WRAP. So you can't, you have to file separately to exclude your spouse's income. If you file jointly, both of you have to include both your incomes, and it's not adjusted based on the other's debt, which is incredibly unfair. So if you both make $100,000, your payments for both of you is going to be almost $1,000 a piece for both of you. Whereas with IBR, they would prorate it based on the percentage of balance that you have, and it would only total 1,000. So it could literally double your payment if you're married and it's too expensive to file separately for various reasons. One of you has an S corp, or one of you makes a lot more money than the others. Are typical examples of reasons where filing separately is cost prohibitive. You definitely want to avoid RAP if you can, because that could make it a lot more expensive for you. And this is again for borrowers who are married and both spouses have student loan debt. RAP is especially bad for that. All right, so I want to talk about parent loans for a little bit, because parent loans were crushed probably the most by this bill. Parent borrowers cannot choose RAP at all for loans taken out, or they cannot choose RAP at all in any circumstance. So the parent borrowers will never have access to RAP. And existing parent borrowers can keep IBR. So if you're in IBR, you can stay in it. You don't have to switch to a different plan so that they switch you back to IBR. Eventually, all parent borrowers will be in IBR who are in an income-driven plan. And to do that, you have to consolidate by July 1st of 2026 before you can, in order to qualify to get into IBR. And you have to enroll and be enrolled in the income-based repayment program in a consolidated loan by July 1st of 2028. Otherwise, you won't qualify for anything. So you have to make sure that you're aware of that. Yeah, so you have to actually be in the program to keep it long term, until, of course, the next administration comes and changes it. That's pure speculation, but I think also pretty likely. A couple other things to know: that forgiveness right now on income-based repayment plans, again, hasn't happened in a while, but it's not legally blocked on IBR, so that should be starting again. Borrower defense, if you're seeking that, borrower defense is going to be still available, but likely reduced. I don't know if you remember in 2016, during Trump's first administration, nobody was forgiven hardly at all under borrower defense. They really just basically, people had to wait until Biden took over before they started receiving forgiveness. At which point, then, many people got very liberally forgiven and approved for that program. So those are the nuts and the bolts of most everything. I don't know if you guys survived this long through all this. So before I melt your brain with more information, does anyone want to jump in the chat and ask a question? Then we'll call on you, and then you can unmute if you want to. Okay. So, okay, as for Jennifer H., if you want, you can unmute. And again, if you want to go ahead and read your question off for me, or ask the question again, and that way I can respond to it.
Hi, sure.
Yeah,
so we've been doing married filing jointly with choosing the option on the application of not having reasonable access to this.
Oh, yeah,
spouse.
yeah.
That's still an option, and I was currently under Repay prior.
Right, interesting. So yeah, so again, this one is that workaround of that loophole where you file jointly, but then you indicate that you don't have reasonable access to your spouse's income, and that your income has changed. So then you can provide new proof of income documentation other than a tax return, which obviously is going to show a joint filing. So, and obviously there's some debate as to how ethical this is, or whether it's within the compliance of the rules. Not to get into that, but because there are circumstances and where that's necessary, especially if you're divorced or widowed, or if you just don't have access to your spouse's income, it can be interpreted that way, potentially. So again, not to get into the details of whether you should do that, but whether you can do that is the question. And as of now, you can still do that, but it's likely that will still remain for the income-based repayment programs. I know with RAP, and we'll have to see, and there's some unanswered questions we have, lots of unanswered questions we have about the way RAP is going to be handled. But it seems there's some language in the new bill that seems to indicate that there may be a little bit more scrutiny over exactly what qualifies, and they may reword the question. But as far as I know now, that option is still going to be available at least through 2028 in all the other plans, and may continue to be. But whether it stays, and especially whether it's even an option in the application for the RAP program, that I don't know. So does somebody
Thank
else have
you.
a question? Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, let's talk about this for a second. So, okay, Parent Plus loans. Again, some of these changes are so brutal. Right now, take out as much as you can, and you'll still be able to utilize the existing plans, right? And the existing options, including forbearance and so forth. If you take out a Parent Plus loan after July of 2026, then you'll forfeit your eligibility for all the income-driven plans on even your existing loans, which is insanity, but that's the reality of the way what they've done with the bill. So you want to, think very carefully about whether you take out additional parent loans if you need the IBR plans you're in for the existing loans. So if you have additional to take out. Another thing with Parent Plus loans is for new borrowers who take out parent loans after July of 2026, they're not going to qualify at all for public service loan forgiveness because they can't get in a qualifying plan. They won't qualify for IBR or RAP or anything. So, and if you are in IBR now or any of the income contingent repayment plan, any of the income driven plans, and you take out a new loan, then none of your loans qualify for anything, which is just crazy. So, one strategy for that would be to have the other spouse take out the loans to accumulate the debt for that debt if you need to take out additional parent loans. So it doesn't affect the plans that the current parent is already experiencing. So hopefully, did that answer your question?
So, yeah, so I when I talk to parents, right now there's, they've always been able to take out the Parent Plus loan all the way up to the cost of attendance. Now
Right.
that's changed, and that's a huge thing that my clients lean on.
Right.
Hey, we can afford this college no matter what because we'll just take out the Parent Plus loan. But now there's a cap on it,
Yep.
and that'll be effective when?
July 1st of 2026.
Okay. Um, so my parents now take out the Parent Plus loan, max it out right now
Yeah,
this
take
year.
it out now and you're fine. You can still, yeah, you just, yeah, anything after July 1st of 2026 that's dispersed is going to be subject to the new rules, and it's going to shake everything up. So, but for now, take out as much as you can.
Okay. And then, so you're saying the ones that are in it now, they could still do that consolidation and do the payments under the 20% of the discretionary taxable income. That's still in play now for loans that are happening before July of 26.
Correct. And the good news, the one silver lining for that is those borrowers in the 20% ICR program, which is until now the only plan that single consolidated borrowers can take advantage of, they're automatically going to eventually be switched to the IBR or the 15% plan. So the payments will go down for people who have one consolidation of parent loans and are in the income contingent repayment plan. They're going to be switched over to IBR as long as they're enrolled in income contingent or any plan before before July of 2028. They have to be consolidated before July of 2026. So they have to take out the loan and consolidate it right away. And then they have to be in a plan, any of the income driven plans. They don't qualify for RAP, but IBR, whatever, if pays you aren't still there, or they can do that, probably IBR. If they're in that, then they can stay in IBR through the duration of the repayment. But you don't want that. You want to make sure that you get consolidated before July of next year to still qualify for those plans.
Okay. Now, if I have a parent obviously going next year, they want to take out the Parent Plus loan next year, but they're going to have a different situation to deal with. They're not going to be able to consolidate, kids going in, let's say fall of 26. It's going to be different for them. So the parents can still
Yes.
take out the Parent Plus loan. They'll be taking out less of it, but
Right.
the payment options will be very different. It won't be this 20% and then possible forgiveness. Can you talk a little
Right.
bit about how the
They'll just have to be in a standard plan. Exactly.
standard plan? Okay,
That's all they'll have.
so trying to do the one parent that's got the low income and qualifying for the low payments based on that one parent won't come into play anymore.
No.
Okay,
Again, yeah. So you want to do the other parent, because if they take out new loans after July of 2026, then they'll be kicked out of the IBR plan they're already in.
got it. Okay, so that's very important. I let my clients know that any Parent Plus loans they have right now, they need to consolidate all of them by July 1st of 26, so they don't
That's right.
lose that current income contingent repayment plan, which is going to turn into the IBR plan.
That's right. That's correct.
Okay. And then the ones that do it after July 1st of 26, oh, well, you're in a standard plan and you're just going to be with everybody else. And what about the forgiveness? Is that still a possibility after 20 or 25 years? Nope.
It is for existing borrowers, but for borrowers who take out loans after July of 2026, forgiveness is not
Okay.
going to be an option for parent
Okay,
borrowers.
got it. Okay. Thank you, Jan. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. You bet. All right. Got another question? Just say the name and I'll have them ask it. Kieran and Francois. Yeah, you guys want to unmute? Ask your question.
Hey Jan, how you doing?
Good.
Good. Yeah, so my question was, if there's a large disparity of income between spouses and only one spouse has the loan, is enrolled in PSLF, is it better to file jointly or separately to kind of spread out? I'm thinking if we file jointly, we're going to spread the income and it's going to lower the payments. Am I wrong or?
Right. So if both spouses have loans,
No,
and
I don't. Only one
or
has
only
loans.
one has loans, yeah. And the one that obviously in PSLF, right? And they have the low income.
No, they have the highest income.
Oh, the highest income. Yeah. So right now, again, you're going to keep the current rules. This is only for new borrowers. The current rules will allow you to file jointly, and then or you can file separately and exclude the other spouse's income if you want. Or are you in a common property state?
Yes,
Yeah.
California.
So with common property, for those who don't live on the West Coast, where most of those states are, when you file separately on your taxes, what they do is they don't separate. Let's say both one spouse makes 100,000 and the other spouse makes 200,000. Well, both spouses will have an AGI of 150 on their tax return if they file separately. Otherwise, they'll have a total of 300 there. So it can be beneficial for borrowers who are in a common property state, like California and some of those West Coast states. I forget all of them, Oregon, Washington, maybe. It can be beneficial for them to file separately on their taxes so that they can, even though the spouse with the debt has the big income, because then they'll divide it up. If you have one spouse that has a lot of debt, but the lower income, then you can file separately and then use alternate proof of income documentation to lower your payment based on what your individual income is. So the answer is complex, but it just depends. So it depends on how much money each spouse makes on paper, whether you're in a common property state, and whether both or one of the spouses has student loan debt. But if the spouse makes most of the money, and let's say the spouse has an income 3 times greater than, and they also have the debt. So we'll say your wife has the most, has, $200,000 in debt, makes $200,000 a year. And the husband makes $30,000 a year and doesn't have any debt. Then you're going to want to file. You could file jointly in that circumstance, and your 30,000, the husband's 30,000 income won't really increase the payment that much, and you'll save money on taxes, right? Because you'd be in different tax brackets. So you have to weigh the costs between the separate filing with the IRS and what it's going to do to your payment. So it's complicated math, and there's no one size fits all for that. It would have to be, a specific assessment. But I can say, generally speaking, especially if one spouse makes 200 and one makes 100 in a common property, and the spouse that makes 200 is the one that has the student loan debt, then filing separately will actually benefit you, because instead of using her $200,000 income, you would use the separate filing $150,000 income because of the proration they would do, the even split in the common property state, if that makes sense. So I don't know. Did that answer your question, Francois?
Yeah, I think so. Because right now it's like 420 versus 80.
Right. Right.
So
420,000. Yeah. Right. So
yeah,
your combined income is 500, right? So
yeah.
if you file separately, you'll be you'll be the person who has $420,000 a year will actually show an AGI of 250, right?
Oh, okay. I was understanding it wrong. Okay, okay, that makes sense. Okay, so
Yep.
it's in this case, it's better to go
Perfect
separately.
example, because the one that makes 420 is also the one with the student loans, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. So that's the case. So if you file separately in a state that is not common property, which is 38 of the 50, most of you, then you'll need to file separately to exclude the other spouse's income. Oh, but you could also file jointly and include the other's income. And especially with IBR, if one spouse is 80 and the other has 420, then filing jointly is probably going to be make more sense, just because the $80,000 income won't increase the payment as much as the IRS is going to charge you for filing separately, because each spouse makes such a different amount. So it
Different.
throws the tax brackets off, if that makes sense.
Perfect. Thank you. That answers the question. Thank you.
You're welcome. Who's next? Rick? Rick. All right. Ask me a question about Rick. Say Rick.
Hey, good afternoon. Thank you for hosting. I will definitely be scheduling an appointment with you, but I wanted to ask a couple of just general questions. If you're in SAVE program, when it's terminated, are there any roadblocks or difficulties or negative consequences to switching to IBR at that point after the SAVE has been terminated? Thank you so much for
Yes.
doing this.
Sure, absolutely. So as far as switching, you will have time. They're going to give you the option. So eventually, first of all, if you watch the news, and hopefully I'll send out newsletters here to notify people when this happens. If the courts make a ruling and cancel all the income contingent repayment plans, including pay as you earn and save, then you probably know it's coming, and it's a good time to probably put in your switch request right away. And then what's likely going to happen is that federal student aid is going to notify people, okay, now you have to switch, and you have so many months to do so, and then you have to do it by that date. If you don't do it by that date, then they say, we're going to choose it for you, or we're going to slap you into the standard payment plan. So that's the way that will likely work. Again, if the courts never decide, then of course they'll notify you that we're going to switch you out of it anyways in a couple of years. But I suspect the courts will decide. Again, I don't know this for sure, just speculation. But I suspect the courts will decide before federal student aid makes you switch. That would be my guess. But yeah, either way, so you should have time to choose your plan by that time.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Again, that expound on that after. New borrowers who take out loans after 2026, whether they're parent loans or not, will be limited to only 9 months of forbearance every 24 in a 24-month period. So that's only affecting borrowers who take out their first loans after July 1st of 2027, actually, is when that goes into effect. Another question? LaSalle, if you want to unmute and ask a question, go ahead.
This is Sal. Is that?
Oh, Sal, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the name right. That I'm sure
Okay.
that's you. Yeah.
You can call. I like that though, LaSalle. Okay, so my question was about consolidating before the June 30th deadline last year to take advantage of the full payment count adjustment.
Mm-hmm.
And my servicer never acknowledged a full payment count. They just start me at 0 at the standard plan. And that's been concerning. And I'm not sure if other people have experienced that, if there's a way to talk to my servicer. At the same time, I'm trying to get onto the IBR plan,
So
which
how
now
long
I just heard.
ago? Yeah. How long ago
Sorry.
you're not on the IBR, you're on the standard right now, right?
Yeah, I applied for the IBR, but they haven't processed it, so it sounds like it's time to apply again.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Apply again. And when did you consolidate? July of last year?
before June 30th to take advantage of
You did.
that offer that
Should
was
be
happening.
fine. And then did you ever see the IDR one-time account adjustment populate in January?
No, No, I never saw it populate.
All
That's the issue.
Okay,
In
so
studentloan.gov.
yeah,
Yeah.
nobody can see that right now. So it came available in January and then it disappeared in March. So the new administration took it away. There is
Okay.
a hack that maybe we can put that into the chat here later on, where you can see your total. It's not easy to figure out because it's a bunch of code, but if you look at it closely, you can read it. And basically, what you do is you log into federal student aid, and then you make sure you're fully logged in, and then you open a new window in that same browser, and you put in a very specific link and hit enter, and you'll see a bunch of code. And if you look at it real closely, you'll be able to see what your qualified payment total is as a result of the IDR one-time account adjustment. Works most times.
Okay. And then does the servicer ever reflect that as well, or is it just studentloan.gov that's going to reflect that anyway? Like I shouldn't sweat it
Only
if Mohila.
for now, it's probably always going to be at studentaid.gov, because the loan servicer only sees a history for the long as it's been there, and most people don't stay at the same loan servicer through the duration of their payment. So that information will likely only be at studentaid.gov.
And they're the
Certainly
people
there
that
for it.
forgive the loan after a certain amount of time anyway. It's not Mohila. It would be studentaid.gov.
That's correct. Studentaid.gov,
Okay.
federal student aid, they're the ones that forgive the loans. There's the ones that actually administer the forgiveness. That's correct.
Okay, sorry, one quick question, one more.
Yep.
Just I heard you say something about if you've consolidated, you can't exactly move into IBR after that, or is
Well,
can
so
I?
for parent plus borrowers.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's not me.
yeah, exactly. And again, parent plus borrowers, if they consolidate after July of 2026, then they can't get into any income-driven plan at all. But for regular
Okay.
borrowers, they'll still be able to.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yeah, who's the next one? Caitlin S. isn't Sam? Oh, Caitlin F. Caitlin, go ahead.
Hi, I have two questions. One is that so I've now submitted two separate requests to switch out of Save into IBR, and neither has gotten anywhere. So you're saying we should submit again. Would that would I need a new tax return? I did postpone my taxes in case I had to do this, so I haven't filed my taxes yet, so I'm not sure about that. And then also hoping you could explain the tax implications of forgiveness, assuming I did get onto IBR.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so let me say first that who's your loan servicer? Let me ask you that.
Mohila.
Yeah, of course it's Mohila, the worst loan servicer of all time. And when was the last plan switch request did you put in? How long ago?
I did it with you. I think we did it in, I want to say like February.
Oh yeah, so want to do it again.
Okay.
Yep. So yeah, anything before April 27th. Mohila came out and admitted if you submitted a request for an income-driven plan switch before April 27th, or even an application, and it's not done yet, it's never going to be. Basically, I don't know if they had a big bonfire and they just like burned all the applications and danced around it, or something. I don't know how they can, even look at themselves in the mirror and tell you that, but that's the case. They did not keep track of all the applications. So anybody who has not applied, has applied before April 27th should apply again. And okay, so to answer your other question, so either the prior 2-year tax returns, the most recent, qualify as proof of income documentation. So if you haven't filed 24, you can still use your 23 as proof of income. If you have 24, then you're supposed to use 24. So that's the one problem with that too, is that for people who have filed. But if you file an extension, then of course, as you did until October this year, then you still have time to use your 23 in compliance.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then can you explain, so like hopefully I have 97 payments, which is so annoying, which is why I'm trying to get onto IBR. So assuming I got onto IBR and got forgiveness, I would have to then pay taxes on the remainder. Is that true?
Are you in public service loan forgiveness? You have 97 in PSLF, right? Yeah, you'll
Yes,
note.
yes.
So PSLF, teacher loan forgiveness, and total permanent disability are tax-free. If you get forgiven under the 20 or 25 year or even 30-year now forgiveness plans, based on current tax law, they are not taxable if you get forgiven on a federal level, anyways, if you get forgiven prior to December 31st of this year, December 31st or earlier. However, Trump did not extend that. So in the American Rescue Act, they made all forgiveness under student loans of any kind tax-free through the whole pandemic, all the way to December 31st of 2025 of this year. And it's hard to believe it's already 2025. I've had to remind myself. But so anybody who's forgiven January 1st of 2026 or beyond, they're going to make that taxable. You're going to receive a 1099-C in the mail. So you have to decide, well, yikes, do I want to be forgiven that early? And it's a real consideration to put the loans in forbearance for a couple of years until maybe there's a new administration before you get it forgiven and have to pay taxes. You do want to, if you are going to be forgiven and you're not going to be able to stop that from happening, or that's going to happen shortly, then you want to make sure you get a good CPA and a tax attorney, because there are ways to hide assets and mitigate the potential costs through insolvency and other options of the actual tax consequences coming up. But as it stands, the current administration is going to slap everybody with a taxable event on the amount forgiven in the income-driven payment, the 20 and 25-year plans. PSLF is tax-free as always.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Who's next? Mel C, what you got for me? Let's hear it.
Hi, Jan. It's Will and Mel here. So we're background. We have the payee after 2014 scenario, and we've been filing taxes separately so that income doesn't get added on for one spouse who has loans and the other one doesn't. And so, I guess we're just looking to confirm, one, our assumptions on the time frame, and two, on the options. So you mentioned, or we talked through, July 2026 to July 2028 to needing to make some sort of decision. And then, if we've been comfortable with like the payee as of right now, do we have until July of 2028 today to stay on that? And then after the fact, like I saw about a fixed payment or standard structure versus like the other flexible structures. So just like looking for your guidance on pros and cons of when we need to make a decision after, what you would think through.
Gotcha. All right. And your loans are not parent loans, right?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. So, and you do have loans that do predate July 1st of 2014?
No, they're after 2014.
All right. So the good news is that based on the same income, your payment will be the same. So income-based repayment for borrowers who have their first loans taken out after July 1st, 2014, and who are in pay-as-you-earn now, will switch to IBR, and they would have the same payment pay-as-you-earn as they would IBR. For borrowers who have older loans, it's going to go up by 50% based on the same income. So it's a 15% formula instead of 10. So mathematically, it increases your payment by 50% in most circumstances, except for very low income borrowers, to change over to IBR. So that's the good news. But again, you're probably in pay as you earn with a lower payment based on old income, so there's no hurry to switch. So you might as well stay in there as long as you can, right? Because you have a lower payment, and they've extended your anniversary date most likely out into the future, into 2026 sometime. Now, again, the question I get asked all the time: well, how long can I stay in pay as you earn and take advantage of the current payment I have? Well, it just depends. Again, if the courts rule, it's going to be when they rule. If that happens in 3 months or in the next 12 months, then they're probably going to kick you out of pay as you earn and make you switch to IBR. When they make you switch, they're going to make you provide new proof of income documentation at that time. So you can stay in pay until they make you. That could be anywhere from 3 months to 3 years, depending on when the courts rule. And if the courts don't rule in the next year, and it's after July of next year, then federal student aid, when they get around to forcing people to switch in the bill, it indicates that people are going to be transitioned out after July of 2026. And I suspect that'll be sooner rather than later. It does say as late as July of 2028, because it's obviously going to take some time for them to implement that. But I would, I would look for at the very latest, maybe, by the end of 2027, you're going to be forced to switch to new IBR. Luckily, and of course, obviously your payment may go up because your income is a lot higher than when you last certified. But at least you'll be under the same formula for you guys as you were for pay as you earn, and you'll keep the payments that you've accrued already. So you keep what you've earned. They even transfer to RAP, so your payments will come with you when you switch plans.
Does the length switch through too, where it's the same time frame?
Yes, 20 years as well, exact same, 10%, 20 years. So the formula is your yearly income equivalent, maybe your age adjusted gross income, for example, minus 150% of the poverty line in your state for family size, whatever your family size is, times 10% divided by 12. That creates your payment. And then the plan itself forgives after 20 years, both for IBR and pay as you earn. It's the same.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So quite a difference, right? Going from 15% to that's 25 years long for older borrowers. That's much worse, right? Because not only is your payment 50% higher, but also you have to pay it for 5 years longer. So the new IBR plan is just like pay as you earn, is far superior to the old IBR plan. And you want to get into it if you can. But if you even had $1 of debt as of July 1st, 2014, then you do not qualify for the newer 20-year version. Another question? Who wants next? Who do we got? Janet. You want to jump on, Janet, and ask me a question?
Hi, yeah, I think you answered some of it already. Like, 'cause I'm in the SAVE program, and it looks like I might only have one option to get into the. Maybe I could try to get into the pay as you earn or the income-based one. But does it? That won't affect the. I forgot what he called it. I'm trying to look at what I wrote. The one-time payment count. It doesn't matter
yeah.
which.
No, yeah. Your one-time payment account is you've been credit for the past, right, retroactively. So you're going to keep what you've earned and keep what they've given you for the income, the one-time account adjustment. So you'll get credit for that. And how old are your loans? When did you first start taking them out?
I think 2011.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
You qualify for pay as you earn. So if you want, switch to pay as you earn now and ride that out for as long as you can stay in it. And then eventually they're going to make you switch to IBR later. But again,
Okay.
it's 2/3 the payment of what IBR would be. So you might as well do it.
Great. That is really helpful. Thank you.
You bet. Who's next? Carter, go ahead. What you got?
Yeah, you kind of answered my question earlier as well, but we're in a situation where, I had purposefully submitted the request to change from SAVE to a different IBR before taxes because it's a dramatically different income, basically. So it's like going from a resident to a attending physician salary.
Right.
But I still haven't heard anything back, and I'm with Mohilla too. So there's really nothing I can do about that. Just to go ahead and resubmit with the newest taxes and take a higher payment.
Right. Yeah, that's unfortunate. If you do resubmit, you're technically required to provide more recent proof of income. And again, if you're switching from your training to becoming an attending, obviously, your income is going to show a lot higher on your newer return that you filed in 24. And again, that's completely unfair, but it's the reality of it, unfortunately. Yeah.
Okay. I was just writing it out, but I thought eventually it would get processed. I didn't know they just kind of threw all of those applications in the trash.
I thought it would eventually get processed too. And in fact, we had a client that applied in August of 2024 and was approved in April, and it was done, I think, by paper. So that was happening for a time period, but then Mohella, especially Mohella, just recently came out and said, we're not even going to know where those applications are. They're not going to get processed. Just send in a new one. Again, for people in your situation, it's a horrible mistake. So yeah, but unfortunately, technically, you'll be required to provide new proof of income now if you do another request. So you can try and write it out and see maybe if they process it, but I wouldn't hold my breath for that one, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. What do we got next? Marshall Miller, go ahead and ask your question if you want.
Thanks. I was wondering if you could re-describe a strategy for the buyback program. In our situation, we've been in forbearance with Save for a while, 29 payments left. So you're recommending that we switch to a program where we can make qualified payments, and then we'll get to the finish line and we'll want to buy back from the forbearance months. Is that how it works?
Right. So I'll go through the buyback process a little bit for you. So as long as buyback still exists at the time that you're able to request the buyback, which isn't until the buyback months bring you to 120 payments, right? So with buyback, and do you have, let me ask you this, do you have 91 on the tracker? Is that what it shows actually approved to this point?
Yes.
And then you have an additional 12 or 13 months that are ineligible due to the save injunction, right?
Right.
Okay, so let's just call that 12 payments to round that off. So in this case, you have 91 qualified, and you've been sitting in the forbearance for save for 12 months, which means that if you had gotten credit for them, you'd have 103. So in 17 months, if that's the case, in 17 months, your total should show, again, if you were to switch right away, and this will probably your number will probably be 13 or 14 by the time, but for the purposes of this scenario and to explain it, when you hit 108 qualified payments and you have 12 to buy back, that will bring you to 120, then you can apply for buyback at that time. So the process goes like this. You switch plans, you continue to get real-time credit, build on your real-time total, until the point where the months that you're going to request buyback will bring you to 120 or 10 years with the payments, at which point then you would do another employment certification form, and get approved for that, and then submit your buyback after that. So you'll submit your buyback request after your final employment certification form. So in this case, that would be 17 months from now, right? In 17 months, what are we looking at? Let's see, what's 5 months from now? So like the end, we'll call it December of 2026, right? Which is some quick math. In December of 2026, you'll submit, if that's the month that you think you should have hit 120 with the buyback, you'll submit another employment certification form first. You'll wait till it's approved. It might take a couple weeks for that. Submit the buyback request and then wait for them to send you the approval. Once they send you the approval, then it'll give you 90 days to make payments. So they'll say your buyback has been approved. You have to pay $20 million or whatever the amount is to buy back these 12 loans. And they'll give you instructions on how to make the payment. You'll make the payment. Once they process it, they'll bring your total to 120, and then you're in the queue to be forgiven at that point, and you can stop making payments at that point if you want to. Did that make sense? So hopefully that answered your question. We have anybody else? Oh, it must be muted.
Sorry. So can you hear me now?
Yeah.
So for the buyback amounts, what determines those amounts? Are they what the payments would have been during that forbearance period?
They're going to ask, now that it's over 12 months, especially. So the rules were different for that. If it was under 12 months, they would have used proof of income already established, right? Which could have been back to 2019 because of the pandemic. But now that it's been after 12 months, they're going to ask for new proof of income for that time period. And then they'll base the payment off of that and multiply it times the number of months you're trying to buy back.
Got it. Thank you.
You bet. Yeah. Janae?
Hi, it's Janaea.
Janaea. Okay.
Thank you. So yeah, I unfortunately tuned in late, so you might have already answered a version of this, but I'm on Save still. I first took out loans in 2004. I think I am only eligible for the old IBR plan. Is that
correct? That's correct.
That's correct. Okay.
Yeah, you don't qualify for pay. Yeah, exactly. You're too old.
Okay. So just want to make sure I have this right. So any reason that I need to switch to the new plan by August 1st versus waiting longer? Like the reason I think I see that maybe I should switch is that I haven't filed 2024 taxes yet. And I think 2023 was lower. And so still being able to use that for a chunk of time could be useful. But
Yeah, that's a good
um,
reason to switch. If,
yeah.
again, if your 24 return is much higher and you haven't done the 24 yet, you can use the 23. Obviously, again, that will create a lower payment for you. And then you want to switch to lock that in, right?
Okay.
Yes, definitely. So, and are you in public service loan forgiveness?
No,
Okay, yeah.
just
So,
the regular 25-year.
so if you had a big, yeah, if you had a big change, then in income, and again, because you don't qualify for any other plans, you're eventually going to have to make payments at the income-based repayment plan rate, anyways.
Okay.
So you might as well switch if you're ready to make payments. The only exception would be is if you have some sort of other financial objective right now that has greater priority, or
Yeah,
you feel,
yeah,
yeah,
that is worth considering. I don't think the income difference is that big. So, and
right.
waiting to make payments a little longer would be kind of nice. So there's no like massive penalty that I would run into of like waiting longer until they make their court
No, all it really does,
determination.
yeah, it just costs you time. And as a
Right.
measuring stick for old IBR, for every $8,000 of income that increases, your payment goes up $100 a month. That's how the math works out there.
Every
So you can compare.
$8,000, it's up 100 a month.
Yeah. So
Okay.
for
That's
example,
helpful.
let's say you made 100,000 AGI in 2023, and your
Mhm.
2024 shows 124,000. That would increase your payment by $300 a month, because for
Okay.
every
Got it.
$8,000, your payment goes up or down $100 a month in IBR.
Okay.
The old version.
That's
The
really
new
helpful to
version,
know.
it's 12,000. Yeah. And then just for
Okay.
people who are on new IBR, the difference is $12,000 for every $12,000 your income changes on paper. Your payment goes up or down $100 a month, respectively.
Okay. And then the WRAP program is not available for a while yet, and it sounds like may not be useful for everyone anyway.
Right, July of 20, yeah, definitely want to. July of 2026 is when is the earliest that it'll become available. And again, yeah, it could be cheaper, especially the thing is too is that you're not in public service loan forgiveness, so it's 5 years longer. It's a 30-year term. You keep the payments that you've made, but you have to make your new wrap payment for 5 extra
Yeah.
years.
Okay. Yeah.
Um,
So that very well could not be worth it.
Right. I mean, there are circumstances where it still could be, especially for super high income earners. But in most cases, it's kind of a deal breaker to go to the 30
Yeah.
and go over to wrap. And there are other
Okay.
reasons not to go to wrap as well, especially for married borrowers. So, and again, this will be on YouTube, so you eventually be able to watch the beginning of it too, where I go over that in
Okay.
more detail if you want.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Who's next?
Hey, Jan, this is Brant.
Brant, how's it going?
Good. Hey, quick question. I was looking at possibly doing a Parent Plus loan for my daughter's junior year, both semesters. Is the double consolidation loophole, is that still active, or did that close with the deadline that was
Well,
started this month?
that's a good question. The SAVE program, which is basically has the injunction, the regulation that created SAVE contains the deadline for the double consolidation loophole. So essentially, because that program is on hold or is basically nullified, or in injunction right now, so was that deadline. So technically, again, this is a little foggy. I can't give you 100% on this because there's so little precedence for that right now. But I believe that you still do the double consolidation. Now, the double consolidation would only be beneficial for the next year or two until they make you switch, right? Because let's say you get into pay as you earn, or something like that. Eventually, they're going to make you go to income-based repayment anyways as a parent borrower by July of 2028. So theoretically, you could do the double consolidation, and go through that process, which might, if you're just starting that, could take 4, 5, 6 months, and then go into the pay as you earn program if you qualify for it, for and as long as that program exists until they kick you out, and that might be a year or two potentially, but it's worth the try if you want to. Other than that, you're eventually going to end up in the same IBR plan no matter what at the end by July of 2028.
Okay. So it sounds like I should maybe schedule a one-on-one with you to figure that a little bit more.
Yeah, we can work that out to see if that's be worth it. I'd be glad to
Okay.
go over that with you, of course.
Perfect. All right. Thanks, Jan.
You bet. Next one. Who was our next person? Jennifer H. Do you have a question? Yeah. So again, to repeat, as I said before, at the beginning, the all income-driven plan forgiveness where the forgiveness happens after January 1st of 2026 are going to be taxable for this current administration, right? So they weren't taxable in Biden's administration due to the American Rescue Act. They are taxable because the American Rescue Act ends on that provision ends on December 31st of this year. So if you're forgiven before January 1st, it's still tax-free. If you're forgiven between January 1st and 2029 sometime when Taylor Swift becomes president, then Taylor Swift will then again make it tax-free. Who knows what's going to happen? It can be changed again. But whether it's AOC or Jake Paul or whoever becomes president in 2029, then we could see that taxable liability change again. So it does matter when you're forgiven, and we don't know for sure. But again, as I mentioned before as well, there are ways to mitigate the tax liability. So you want to make sure you get a good CPA or tax attorney on your when you're approaching that forgiveness total. Who's next? Do we have anybody else for hers? Okay, sure. She's the last one. Okay. Oh, okay. Well, Billy, go ahead, Billy Joel. What you got?
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to confirm, because I always tell my clients this, that when they have multiple students in college at the same time, which is common, they can, and they take out the Parent Plus loan, they can't ask for forbearance all the way up until the last student has graduated.
It's repeat the question again. I'm sorry.
So I have clients that have multiple students in school at the same time. Let's say they might have kids in school for 10 years and they take out the Parent Plus loan. They can continue to ask for forbearance up until that last student has graduated, so they don't have to start repayment until.
Oh yeah, they can still do that. Yeah, the administrative forbearance, so that all the loans come due at the same time is still available for them.
Okay.
But again, if they take out loans after 2026, then they're not going to be able to get in any plan. So that still applies there.
Yeah. So let's just say they do 10 years of Parent Plus loans. At the end, they have all these loans to look at, all these individual loans. Do they just consolidate all those, or do they look into doing the standard payment individually on each one? How would that work?
Well, so again, if they take out loans after July of 2026, all of the loans, including loans they already have in their name, are disqualified from all IDR plans, kicked out of everything.
Yeah.
So that's why I recommend that the other spouse, after July of 2026, the other spouse take out the remaining loans. And that way the existing parent borrower with the loans that they already have can stay in IBR and not be affected by the new changes.
Got it. And then let's just say that second parent does take out multiple loans. And then when they're all done with their students graduated, then do they consolidate all those loans, or they just kind of make payments on them individually because they're all separate Parent Plus loans?
All those loans, especially that happen after July of 2026, they're going to just have the standard plan, so they can consolidate them if they want, but they may be able to increase or decrease their payment that way by extending out the loan term, but ultimately they'll just have the standard plan. That's all they'll have. Okay. And they'll still have some forbearance, but a more limited amount, right? 9 months every 24 months forbearance.
Yeah. So I'm a little confused on that. So obviously you have kids going to school every single year, and obviously they're in school for 9 months. So you're saying that during the summer, that forbearance wouldn't apply?
Well, that's an interesting thing. I don't know how it would apply to that, because that's a different kind of forbearance, often administrative forbearance or what have you, that the loan servicer puts in. So, and we'll want to see if that applies just to the economic hardship forbearance, which is a different forbearance, the one that people normally ask for a year at a time. So I'm not, it's a good question. I don't know if I probably can't answer that 100%. I don't know if they're going to be able to use the specific forbearance you're talking about, which is what they use for parent borrowers with multiple children. When the first child that goes to school, when their loans come out of in-school deferment and into repayment, the loan servicer will allow a forbearance on those loans so that no payments come due until all the kids are out, right? So is that 9 out of 24 month rule going to apply to that as well? I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Anybody else? Yeah, go ahead, Caitlin.
I don't know if it's a different Caitlin. You answered all my questions already.
Oh, you did? Okay. And what
Yep.
about Jody? Jody, did you have another follow-up? So maybe Jody's gone, or there
Sorry.
you are. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just asking about my particular loan is currently through Nelnet, like it was bought by Nelnet. And I was just checking on my status, and we had applied to switch me to IDR, I believe, onto the Save plan, but they never processed it. So I was
Right.
wondering if Nelnet is similar to Mohila, as you were talking about in that regard, where they just haven't been processing those loans that I should resubmit.
I would say in that case, resubmit. Nelnet isn't quite as bad as Mohila is, but if you submitted a request to enter an income-driven plan and the save injunction happened before you were approved, so you never got into the save, you just got put in an awaiting administrative forbearance until they do process whatever plan. That means that you applied like way before July of last year, right? So
Yeah, I applied in April of 2024,
yeah, that's
and it's
not going to
still
be
just pending
processed.
on the page.
Yeah, so you're
So
going to have
even
to submit
though,
another one.
okay,
Yeah.
but it's still worth it because we don't know. I could end up still being on that for another year, depending on how long it takes them to process it.
Right, right. You might as well apply for the best program that creates the lowest payment and the best situation for you right now, and use as much of it as you can before they make you switch to ultimately the income-based repayment plan.
And when they make a switch, do they just automatically switch us over, or do
No,
they?
they're going to make you do a switch request and provide new proof of income, most likely.
Okay, gotcha.
So, and if they choose the plan for you, maybe they'll use the old proof of income. I don't know. Like there is one circumstance where people who had the revised pay-as-you-earn program after the pandemic were automatically switched into save, and they just adjusted their payment and no application was required. I don't see that happening again. I think that any plan switch is going to, from now on, is going to require most likely new proof of income and an actual plan switch application where the borrower has to provide more recent up-to-date proof of income.
Okay, that's fine in my case, but yeah, all right. Thank you
Mhm.
for clarifying. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Is there anybody else? Janet, you want to go ahead and ask me your question?
Yeah, just a quick question. I think I was maybe misunderstanding the pay as you earn. Like I took out loans in like 99 to 2001 or something like that and paid them all off. But would that disqualify me from the pay as you
Oh,
earn?
good question. So if you took them out at 99 and then and you through 2001, but you paid them off before July or before October 1st of 2007, so that as of October 1st of 2007, you had a zero balance. And then you took out new loans, and at least one of them being after 2011, then yes, you qualify for pay as you earn.
Amazing. Thanks.
Yep. Anybody else? So anybody want to jump in with a question? I think that's going to be it. I think we made it to the end.
I have one more question.
Go ahead.
It's about the you had kind of mentioned it briefly, but about the borrower defense. I had an application in, and it's scheduled that if they haven't replied to my request by January of this coming year, so not too far away, that it's supposed to be automatically approved. And it's still pending. Do you know anything other like further about that? Like I'm wondering if they're just going to mass deny all of us that they haven't gotten to right before the deadline.
Well,
But
yeah, so borrower defense still exists, and it was kind of restored back to what it was prior to some of the changes Obama made. But this current administration, and again, I use the example in 2016 when Trump became president and Betsy DeVos became the Secretary of Education. Borrower defense apps were just, even when the borrower qualified, they just weren't processed or given. Nothing happened. They didn't give any forgiveness. It just stalled the whole program. So borrower defense still exists as it was, back before Obama, but so it still works in theory. But this current administration, I don't know this for a fact, but I would not be surprised if they just sat on those. They they whittled down that department to nothing, and they sat on those forgivenesses. Now you should still, bar defense is still processing these things, so you should still hear from them. So they're still operational, right? I think they're a vendor, so they're not directly with federal student aid. So I think you can go and you might want to reach out and contact them, or submit another application again if you haven't heard from them, because I've seen, from my point of view, I'm seeing responses from them, like communications from them, frequently. So if you're not getting anything, if you're just getting chirp chirp, then you want to reach out to them and make sure they have the application, and if not, submit another one.
Okay, well, it's showing up that it was submitted, and I could contact them. But
How
my
long ago did you submit
understanding
it?
was that I want to say 4 years ago. So
Oh,
it's
you submitted
coming
the
up
application 4
on.
years ago. Yeah. Were you ever
I'm
put in
trying to remember.
forbearance?
Yeah, I'm in forbearance until 2018 based on that. But my husband says when he looked it up, the deadline for them to respond to me was January of next year. And that if they don't respond by January of next year, it's supposed to be automatically forgiven because they're taking so long to process these things. That was
Right.
part of
Yeah.
the situation.
So yeah, again, it's been that long. Something is amok. You'll need to contact them though.
Okay. All right. But
Yeah.
so you're saying
Hopefully,
that,
I don't know. Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
you were saying that the current administration is just sitting on that, or did that in the past and might do that again, where they just kind of sit on them and don't process them.
Hmm.
Um, doesn't that does that not mean that when they hit that date, they won't automatically be forgiven?
Well, I mean, in theory, technically speaking, yes. So, without that would require me to look a little deeper in your situation to see what the reason it hasn't been processed for, or it may
Okay.
have been processed and you just never received notification that they declined it or that they came to a decision, which is
Okay.
probably more common. So that's why you need to find out. So there are circumstances where yes, that's true, but I think what you'll probably find, I mean, given how poor their communication is, that they probably have already processed it, and they haven't told you. But that's just a guess without looking into it.
Okay,
You'd have
makes
to
sense.
talk to them. Yeah,
All right, I'll follow up with them then. Thank you so much.
you bet. No problem. Is that it? All right, guys. Well, for everybody who made it this far, thank you so much. And hopefully that's helpful. I'm going to put this on YouTube and I'm going to break it up into little pieces eventually so that you can watch just specific subjects. Other than that, thank you for attending. If you want to end the meeting, you can do it.
Thank you.
You're welcome, guys.
Thank you.
No problem. Thanks for coming. If you want to end the meeting on here, you can. Bye, everybody. Yep.